again, everybody, and welcome to Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Alongside Gabe DeArmond and Dave Matter, I'm Bo Bayman. Sort of a ho-hum Saturday at Faurot Field. We anticipated as much going into the game against SEMO. The Tigers win 50-0 in a game where they scored. The good news is they scored it practically every way possible.
In the first 8 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Offense, defense, and special teams. And after that, I think they kind of put it in cruise control a little bit, which is to be expected, and they were never in danger of that game even being remotely competitive.
The only thing that was in danger to me was they played Kelly Bryant a little longer than I thought they would.
They played all the starters, and Yasir Durant got an injury. Now they're telling us, hey, he's fine, he's going to play, but they tell us that about everybody, so who knows? But I really did. I didn't really understand why they were in the first 2-3 series of the second half. I mean, whatever, it worked out okay, but it was 37-0 at halftime. At that point, are you really getting a lot out of being out there?
And it's amazing to me that this is week 3. If this game is week 1, I can sort of understand it just because it's sort of, I don't want to say it's preseason, but you know what I'm saying? You get a warm-up.
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, do they need the reps? We'll just do that in practice. I mean, what are they going to get out of being out there, especially if they're not dealing with a full playbook, which they kind of said after they
I think you actually get more out of practice than you get out of that game. But again, you know, you can play both sides of it. Is Missouri rested and in good shape now, or is Missouri going to go into this game not as prepared as the team that faced Alabama? Who knows? It probably doesn't have any effect either way.
Absolutely. So the Tigers are now 2-1 on the season. I mean, offense, defense, special teams, they were all good. And, you know, I would even throw in the fans actually showed up. I mean, there was a pretty good crowd.
Yeah, and I know it was family weekend, and that helps. And they had like 2,000, youth football players or something like that from St. Louis, and that helps. But that's the kind of thing they have to do.
Right.
I mean, it was a much bigger crowd than West Virginia, which is all based on 11 o'clock and 6 o'clock, But you would think now, theoretically, I think every home game should actually have more than the SEMO game, but who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think of some things that didn't go well, one is the length of the game, the start time of the game, especially from your perspective, and then the other thing is the penalties.
Yeah.
Too many penalties for me.
7 on offense and procedure penalties before the snap, a couple of illegal blocks. I mean, those are things you got to clean up because you can survive that in a game like this. But if you're in a fourth quarter game against South Carolina or Florida, whoever, I mean, those things are going to come back and haunt you.
Do we make too much out of that, though?
Sometimes,
because,
maybe.
I mean, Alabama's one of the most penalized teams in the country. The Kansas City Chiefs lead the NFL in penalties the last, 3 years. There are some you can live with and some you can't. I mean, and the odd part is Missouri had at least 2 that it was surprising. Tyree Gillespie could have been kicked out of that game, and Jordan Elliott said after the game he was surprised he didn't get targeting.
Well, Gabe, didn't you see the tweet this morning that everybody's sleeping on Alabama?
I did see
they're
that,
just a
yes.
sleepy program in Tuscaloosa that gets no pub at all. As far as injury updates, you mentioned Durant. They come out pretty healthy going into the SEC slate.
Yeah, really, they really are. Trajan Jeffcoat, who knows about him? I mean, he's a guy that got hurt the first day of practice, and they thought he'd be back in a week, and it's been almost 2 months now. So we'll see. If they get anything out of him at this point, I think it's kind of a bonus. Durant, I think it's worth monitoring just to see if he really does play. I mean, Barry was adamant that not only will he play, he will start and play well.
Well, I think he'll start, but then is he in there on the third series?
Yeah,
that's the question.
Well, it's interesting because 2-1 already, and you're already a quarter through the season. I mean, so at the quarter poll, you still are disgusted by that week 1 performance after the 14-0 lead, and that's really going to, I mean, we knew it at the time, but that's going to be a stain on the season.
Yeah, not much can really erase that. Even their defense has played so well the last 2 games. They're way up there in a bunch of the national rankings, and nobody seems to want to give it any credit or validity because of Wyoming. So you take the good with the bad in that realm, and you just try to move on as best you can. I think fans and some media, I think fans struggle with these losses more than the players do. They just move on. I mean, they absolutely just move on, and we've seen that with this team. I mean, they've been able to move on from bad losses and just pick up, and figure out the next one.
And in that game, it was 2 long runs, 3 turnovers. That's a recipe for losing.
Yeah, it's not hard. And then on the flip side, I mean, we all kind of dismissed West Virginia and said,
Right.
Yep.
oh, this team is terrible. Well, they just went and beat an NC State team that a lot of people thought would be fringe top 25 by 17 points, so maybe that win was better than we thought it was.
As we go into the big battle, I mean, this really changes the season this weekend to me, this game against South Carolina. It's a team that you've struggled with, especially under Barry Odom, and it's a game that you really got to have.
Yeah, because if you lose, you're 2-2 going into a bye week without any momentum. You wonder if those crowds are going to come back for Troy and Ole Miss and the next couple of games. If you win, you feel great about yourself. You finally get, this monkey off your back. You move on. You pretty much eliminate South Carolina from doing anything this year. So, yeah, this one's pretty pivotal.
Well, and people always want to point to what's the biggest game of the year, Georgia, no, the biggest game of the year is the teams you're likely in competition with.
Yeah.
That's South Carolina, Florida, and Kentucky right now. Tennessee and Vandy should be wins. South Carolina, Missouri, Kentucky, Florida are 2 through 5 in some order. You win this game, you're a lot closer to 2 than you are 5.
Funniest thing yesterday, asked of Barry Odom, I thought was, hey, do you know it's going to rain? It's supposed to rain on Saturday.
Almost as funny as, hey, there's a trophy for this game, which I had no idea before yesterday that there was a trophy.
The
What is it,
Mayor's
the
Cup?
Mayor's
Oh,
Cup?
come
I
on,
mean, I
man.
knew there was like a title, but I didn't know they had a trophy.
And they're bringing it back because they've had it in the Columbia East for
3 years.
for 3 years now, yeah. But what do the Tigers have to do to win this game? Do they have to get off to a fast start? Because we saw that last year and it didn't help.
I mean, 4 of the last 6 meetings between these teams, somebody's blown a double-digit lead and lost. So it's usually Missouri, but South Carolina did it once.
Yeah.
I don't think the fast start's all that important. I think you gotta play. You gotta finish. That's what Missouri didn't do last year. You can't melt down if something bad happens. Missouri's done that plenty of times. Can't turn the ball over. And I think this game kind of looks like it could be a shootout. South Carolina's defense is not very good so far, but they can move the ball. So Missouri's defense has to look more like it has the last 2 weeks than it did in week 1.
And they can move the ball with a backup quarterback. And boy, the quarterbacks in the SEC East are going down.
I mean, a backup quarterback that I think a lot of people think probably should have been the starting quarterback, to be honest, the way he looks. But I also think they're getting a little bit of credit for a game that they were losing by 31 points early in the fourth quarter. I know Bama's good, but at this game, it's going to be a fourth quarter game. I mean, it almost always is between these two teams. Whoever wins the fourth quarter and or overtime is going to win this game.
The SEC East quarterbacks, you've had South Carolina, Kentucky, and now you have Franks at Florida. I mean, it's unbelievable, the attrition.
Yeah, you better protect Kelly Bryant. You
Right.
want to be the next one on that list.
Well, and that's why on Saturday night, I think we were all going, half your division's without the quarterback. And, I know they limited the offense and all that. There's not an eligible guy behind him that can go win very many games on this schedule. Right?
Yeah, no question. Let's look around the SEC from last week. Big thing that stuck out, and it sticks out around here, is K-State goes to Mississippi State and wins. Not saying that Mississippi State's a great team, but that's a nice road win for the Wildcats.
Well, that's the type of game that always leads everybody to say, well, the SEC is the best conference in the country because our 7th place team killed your 7th place team. Not this year.
Right.
Yeah.
You're losing to comparable teams. The SEC has 3 great teams, and we're not sure after that.
Yeah, and Florida was down the whole game and then came back and won at Kentucky. That was a big road win for the Gators.
Yeah, Trask comes in, the quarterback who came in and played well against Missouri last year, and now he's the guy for them. That's the one where you wonder. South Carolina, I think they're fine with their backup quarterback. I'm not sure about Florida. They've seen something in Franks. He played well at the end of last year. I don't know if this guy can keep it up for them.
Well, and Missouri fans base their opinion of Felipe Franks on probably the worst day he's ever had. I mean, it would be like judging, Brad Smith off the Iowa State game or one of the KU games. He's capable of being better than that. Trask, I honestly don't remember if he was any good in that game or not, because by the time he came in, I think I'd quit paying attention.
I mean, he came in and led a touchdown drive and got the fans back up because they were excited to see him.
I do
But at
remember
that
him
point,
completing one pass and the fans acting as if it was the greatest thing that had
the
ever
margin
happened.
was just too big at that point.
Yeah, no question about it. Alabama gets the road win, as we talked about, at South Carolina, and they look good until I thought they took the foot off the pedal.
That reminded me of the Missouri-Georgia game last year, where if you're South Carolina, you're going, hey, we were pretty close. We really had a chance in that. And the reality is, I think the better team was just going, we're going to do what we need to do, and probably not a whole lot more.
I think Alabama's going to go as far as Tua and those receivers take them because their defense, they give up yards like they haven't before in a long time, other than late last season. Like they're not the indestructible Alabama defense we've seen.
I don't think they're the best team in the SEC right now.
I'm not sure they are either.
And that's saying a lot because Alabama has ruled this conference for so long. But if they get to the title game and Georgia gets to the title game, that'll be an interesting one.
I mean, Georgia just treated Arkansas State like Arkansas Pine Bluff.
Right.
You know, I mean, they are dominating. And LSU played poorly and won a game by 51 points.
Yeah. Yeah, they kept Northwestern State around for a while, but LSU's looking good, so is Georgia. And we will talk about your tweets, which we hope look good. And the Twitter segment is coming up next. We'll take a break. You're watching Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back to Tiger Sidelines, everybody. Dave Matter, Gabe DeArmond, and I'm Bo Bayman. Thanks for joining us as always, and thanks for tweeting us as well. We're at Tiger Sidelines on Twitter. We failed to mention in the opening segment the Tigers a 9.5-point favorite as we tape this right now. I mean, that's pretty heavy favorite, even though they are at home.
I think that's a reflection of South Carolina lost to North Carolina earlier in the year, and Missouri they beat West Virginia, who just came off a good win. It's at home. Little effect of the post-Alabama effect of you just played them.
I also think they look at just these teams, whereas everybody on both sides of this game are looking at the last 3 years and going, yeah, maybe Missouri's 10 points better, but that doesn't mean they're going to win because they never win this game.
Yeah, because we've all seen that. All right, our first tweet comes from Gandolfo. It says, any update on the NCAA appeal? Wait,
Bo,
nope,
Bo,
nothing
you
yet.
handle this one because we answer this one like 10 times a week.
Yeah,
so.
Nothing yet. Gosh darn. I thought
If
maybe
there would, we would share it. We'd probably lead the show with it.
It probably would. It might be in the paper.
Like, I don't know if this is going to hurt our ratings, but when it comes out, I don't think that the news is going to break on Tiger Sidelines. We will talk about it, but I hope for both of our sakes we don't break it on this show.
And also, I think this will be big enough news to where if it is out, everyone will know. They won't be asking us.
Right. Yeah, it's a good point. Dan says, when I'm at a Mizzou football game, I miss every other highlight from every other game going on. Do other venues show highlights from other games on the big screen, and do you think they should?
I know some NFL stadiums do. I'm not sure about college stadiums. I don't know. I know some coaches don't like it.
Right.
I think the bigger problem is that Wi-Fi is so bad in most of these stadiums that you can't look at highlights yourself.
I can't recall seeing anything other than like during a rain delay. Like remember South Carolina last year, there was a lightning delay and they put another game on the video board. But I don't. If I'm a coach, I don't know if I want that up
and
there.
they'll put some scores up on the scoreboard, but honestly, they're usually outdated by at least 30 or 40 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody has a phone.
And I can't remember anybody. They do there's a TV break in the NFL game, and they say, hey, here's some highlights from around the league.
It might be a rights issue too. I mean, who knows? Yeah.
All right, Bart says, what successful program should be a model for Mizzou football? You can't manufacture a storied history, and it's hard to drastically change the amount of money coming in. Washington and Wisconsin come to mind. Good teams in the title conversation every handful of years.
I've always thought with this question, Wisconsin and Michigan State are the ones that come to my mind where they're not dominant in recruiting. They maybe don't have an elite recruiting base, but they found ways by getting, guys that maybe some of the other schools missed to have those 10, 11-win seasons. Now, the other argument is those teams don't play in the SEC.
Right. I think Wisconsin is probably the one that fits closest. You look at a medium-sized state with no other D1 programs, not a great storied history of championships, and a bunch of pro teams in the state. What else really fits that? Washington has 2 teams, so it's not Washington. Michigan has 2. Wisconsin's really it, and Wisconsin's figured it out. They're in a different conference, but Maybe a little more population up there. I'm not quite sure. You're the expert on that state.
I am. The only thing I would say about Wisconsin is they have way more passionate fans than Missouri does.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
I mean, they travel. When they go to the Rose Bowl, you see a lot of red there. And not saying that Missouri wouldn't show a lot
If you
of
could go from Milwaukee to Pasadena,
that,
would you
and
go?
that's exactly right. On the first of the year when it's minus 15 and you can go out to Pasadena where it's 70, a lot of people certainly go. But that's a pretty good one. And the thing that they've done is they've kept their offensive linemen that they get from homegrown Wisconsin and put them in front of a really good running back, whether it's Jonathan Taylor, Ron Dane, or
And it doesn't matter who the coach is either. They have a.
Yeah.
They have a.
They basically are running Barry
blueprint.
Alvarez's system
yeah,
still.
for sure. Yeah, absolutely with Paul Christ. All right, what will the vibe be around the program if the team is 2-2 with this schedule and they lose to South Carolina again, especially going into a bye week?
I mean, around the program, it will be, hey, tough loss, we can still go 10-2 and all that. Around the fan base, it won't be very good because these are the separation games, and these are the games that Barry really hasn't done very well in.
If you're a Missouri fan and they win this game, you're going to look at the schedule and go, I don't care who they play. This is exciting. We're good again. Let's
And
go.
should be 6-7-1.
If you lose, you're going to look at it and go, I don't want to go to see him play Troy.
Yeah, right.
Ole Miss, forget that.
Yes.
Let's watch, Major League Baseball playoffs or whatever.
And that's why we've been calling this such a swing game. It's maybe not on their season, but just on the fan base, especially because the apathy will set in if they're 2-2. Does Tucker kick the ball through the end zone every time this year from Rockham? And let's just say this, he's been tremendous
great.
doing both.
I think he had one that was returned, and oddly it was returned to like midfield, I think, by West Virginia. But that's it. Every other kickoff has been not just in the end zone, but 8-9 yards deep where nobody's had a choice.
Right. He's a good kicker. Is it okay to start wondering if he's a better punter?
Yeah, right.
And yeah, he wasn't going to beat out Corey Fatoni the last 3 years, but what if there was a competition? Maybe that would have made Fatoni better. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
Speaking of the Mayor's Cup, next one, do you think Muschamp hates puppies?
We were talking yesterday. I kind of like Will Muschamp, and I know guys who have covered him, and they say he's a little crazy on the sidelines, but everybody I know that's covered him said he's a really good guy.
He's fiery, he's intense. So is Barry, but Barry also can turn it off and be really boring. Muschamp's never boring, and it's never personal with the media. He's just so fired up. I kind of like the guy.
So is Bakari still on the roster? Just kidding, but seriously, says Jackson.
I mean, not everybody can play. They got 84 scholarship players, and I'm not giving Simi Bakari a carry that could go to Larry Roundtree or Tyler Beatty or, frankly, at this point, even Dawson Downey.
Yeah, there's only so many carries a game you can have.
No question. JT says, do you think the door is open for Mizzou to get second in the East with the quarterback injuries that we mentioned to Florida, South Carolina, and Kentucky?
It's
open.
I picked Missouri second going into the season before any of those guys got hurt. So, yeah, I think there's a chance. The Wyoming game doesn't impact that. Do they have a better chance now? Possibly, but again, we'll find out Saturday.
Right. I mean, again, two of those three teams, really all three might be better with the backup quarterback because Terry Wilson, he was fine. Missouri fans probably think he was better than he actually is, but...
Thoughts on attendance so far? I think it's been pretty good. I
I'd say
was
solid.
Yeah, solid. I was a little disappointed in West Virginia, but that was explainable with 11 o'clock and coming off the loss.
Right. I think game time has as much to do with anything. And that last week proved it. 57,000, almost 57,000 the other day. That was more than every game last year except Georgia. And you could tell, too, that wasn't a cooked up number. You look out at the crowd, I'm like, this is pretty good for SEMO.
Yeah, I haven't asked anybody this week, but I would think the hope is they get 60 this week. Don't you think?
If you don't, I don't know when you will.
And also, odd numbered years, these are the years Missouri needs people at the game because you get Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina all here. In those even numbered years, you have Georgia in a whole bunch of bad games.
Yeah. And thinking about attendance and going forward, did they need a big crowd this week just because that's, Barry's been talking about it. They're conscious of it. He's conscious of it.
Like,
he says, hey, we want to sell out. And he says that all the time. And he says, hey, we felt the fans.
And I think he says it because I don't know if there's another head coach in the country who has pretty clearly been tasked by his athletic director to be the PR and the ticket salesman.
Right.
That shouldn't be his job. His job should be to put a team on the field that makes people want to come. He shouldn't, if they win games, it's not his fault if people don't show up.
I went through all the coaching contracts in the SEC this summer. He's the only one that has a bonus clause based on how many season tickets they sell. Because obviously Nick Saban doesn't need that.
Yeah.
Ed Orgeron does, but Missouri it does. So it's in his incentive to want fans to come out.
Do we think it'll be pretty good since it's 3 o'clock kickoff?
Yeah, it's supposed to rain, but again, if you're not getting 60 for this game, you're probably not getting 60 this year unless you are unless you go down to Athens and win, then yeah, the Georgia game's going to be sold out if you do that, or the Florida game.
All right, this South Carolina game reminds me of the Pinkel-era games against Colorado. When the Buffs were fighting to keep their place in the conference, the Tigers were trying to take it. Do you guys have a similar feel about this game in Missouri's place in the conference?
No, because South Carolina's never been where Colorado was in the conference. I mean, the comp there is probably Florida, not the elite team in the division right now, but they're one of the top two. I mean, South Carolina is just a team that I think every year, I think Missouri can base a successful season on, did we finish ahead of South Carolina? If you do that, you're generally probably going to be top 3 in the East.
These programs are pretty similar when you just look at recent history. I mean, Muschamp's, I think, 23-19. Odom's 21-20.
Missouri's highs have been a little higher.
Right, absolutely. And and South Carolina doesn't have a lot of lows. They don't you don't see many 4 and 8 seasons there. And Spurrier deserves a lot of credit for that. Him and Pinkel kind of had similar runs at their two schools. So, yeah, I think these are kind of the peers in the league.
But if you're not 60, you don't know this, but Missouri had been good before Gary Pinkel. Before Steve Spurrier, South Carolina was in the 1978 Hall of Fame Bowl.
Yeah, because they bounced around conferences so much, too.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, thanks for all your tweets. Don't forget, before, during, after the game, we're at Tiger Sidelines on Twitter. We always like your tweets. When we come back, the volleyball team wins the Mizzou Invitational, and we'll talk about it. You're watching Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back. This is segment 3 of Tiger Sidelines. Gabe DeArmond and Dave Matter, and I'm Bo Bayman. The volleyball team returned home, had the home opener in the Mizzou Invitational this week, and swept 4 games, beating Austin Peay, Northern Iowa, UMKC, and Boise State. The Tigers are 8-0, and they're ranked 17th this week. And the thing that's been impressive to me is a lot of these matches have not been close.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been sweeps, and it's not 25-23, it's 25-12 or 25-14. And when you have to play 4 matches in, I think, 3 days or 48 hours, whatever they did, they're getting it done.
Yeah, and I think, the SEC's not great in women's volleyball, so they should just keep racking up these wins. This could be a top 10 team by the time the NCAA tournament comes around.
Yeah, it's a big test this week as they go to Waco, and they will be taking on number 5 Baylor and number 18 Hawaii. So we'll get to see. This is really they've played Michigan, who was top 15, but this is.
I'm not going to pretend to study the volleyball rankings, but I would not have known Baylor was good at volleyball.
Yeah,
Mac Rhodes effect.
He brought what he learned
Until
here.
he goes to USC, right?
Yeah. Soccer went 1-1 on the week, beating Northern Colorado after losing to Cal State Fullerton. Team is 6-2 on the year. They won in overtime against Northern Colorado as Grace Kitts scored the overtime goal. Up next, they'll travel to Ole Miss on Friday for the SEC opener. And again, now's the time to make some hay for this team. 6 wins in the non-conference is good, but if they want to make the field of 64, they've got to win some SEC matches.
This is the interesting thing about this team is sometimes I wonder if people forget Missouri has a soccer team. Like Brian Blitz has been the head coach since I was a freshman in college. Like he's the only coach they've ever had.
Yeah.
And the success has been kind of mixed. So, and they don't have any off-field problems ever, which is why he's probably still employed. And they're always just kind of good enough to be in the mix in whatever league they're in.
We want to mention one thing. Charity softball game featuring Mizzou softball and Mizzou baseball taking place on October 4th at 5:30. They're raising money for the Tiger Pantry. That'll be kind of a cool deal, and I know there'll be a lot of trash talking between the two teams. I think softball won last year.
Yeah, I think generally they do because guys that are used to hitting 88-mile-an-hour fastballs, when you get up there and face the softball, it's actually probably seems a little bit faster because they're closer.
So close, right?
Yeah.
All right, picks this week. Some good games going on. Number 11, Michigan against number 13 Wisconsin. That's a good one. Auburn at Texas A&M, 8-17, and then Notre Dame at Georgia. Georgia gets, I don't want to say it's first test, but they get a good test.
They do. I mean, they're a 2-touchdown favorite, but, you know, if they win this game, they now can afford to lose a game somewhere along the way and maybe still be a playoff team. You know, I mean, either Wisconsin or Michigan's out of the picture after this week. Either Notre Dame or maybe Georgia's out of the picture. But, like, I don't know. We're 6 weeks in, and I think there's 6 teams that have any chance to win a national title.
Notre Dame's pretty good. This is a legit opponent. If Georgia wins this game big, can make the case that Alabama's the third best team in the SEC based on what everyone's done so far.
What do you think will happen to Auburn and Texas A&M?
I'm
A&M
not
at home?
a full believer in A&M yet.
I'm not either.
You know, and I think it's going to take. I mean, they kind of hung around. Clemson didn't play all that well, but I think Auburn wins this game. And you look at A&M's schedule. I mean, you start going in. Hey, do they get to 6?
Yeah.
Ooh, big time. All right, and then the final one. Let's just talk about it. Your prediction: South Carolina and Mizzou.
I mean, my head says Missouri's the better team and should win this game, but I've seen the last 3 years.
But your brains.
Like, it's one of those, I would rather make the safe pick of picking South Carolina and have them prove me wrong than making the pick that really, like, there's no logic to picking Missouri, honestly, at this point, other than, yeah, I think they're the better team, but they can't win this game.
Yeah. I picked South Carolina before the season. Right now, I trust Missouri's defense a little more than I trust South Carolina's. I think this could be high scoring, and I'm leaning towards Missouri. I'll go with Missouri.
But here's the problem. In fourth quarter games that have come down to needing 1 or 2 plays, how many times has Missouri made that play in the last 3 years? Not many.
And has Ryan Olinsky ever made that play?
That's true.
So that's another thing. This is for his first road game.
I mean, Connor Shaw could still come off the bench. You never know.
You never know, but we do all agree that we expect a fourth quarter game. This game is going to come down. I mean, it could come down to a Tucker McCann kick.
Yeah, I'd be stunned if it's more than a one-score game with 5 minutes left.
Yeah, we will see what happens on Saturday. Kickoff at 3 o'clock over at Memorial Stadium, Faurot Field, and we'll talk about it right here on Tiger Sidelines next week. For Bill and Matt and Brian behind the scenes, that's Dave Matter, that's Gabe DeArmond, I'm Bo Bayman. Thanks for watching Tiger Sidelines right here on MC22.